What's up, Knicks fans? We are back again for another season with our friends at FANATICS Sportsbook. And of course, that means we're talking about FANCASH. Now, most sportsbooks, their rewards are just fluff, but FANCASH is the ultimate sports currency. You see, when you bet with FANATICS Sportsbook, you get up to 10% FANCASH back on your wagers, win or lose. And did I mention that they're giving away millions in FANCASH this year, and you can use that FANCASH on anything in the FANATICS universe? Go check it out for yourself and download the app today. FANATICS Sportsbook. Winning hits different here.
Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show presented by FANATICS Sportsbook. It is your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you a little later than usual. Thank you to everybody over on the YouTube channel, checking us out, Twitter, wherever you're watching from, for your patience tonight. Some technical difficulties over at the SNY for my spot over there. But fear not, we're going to still keep with our usual jam of getting these things started in a timely manner. So again, thanks everybody for the patience tonight. As you waited around to discuss a basketball game that was not one basketball game, it was not two basketball games. I counted 3 basketball games in total over the course of those 48 minutes, many of which were painful, some of which were certainly encouraging, and I think the sum total of which can best be described by me as begrudgingly anticipated to an extent. What do I mean by that? Well, let's get into it, because there's a lot we could cover from this game. If you want to look at this is one of those games, an interesting game, because there's some games that you come out of it and it's very obvious, glass half full. Some other games, very obvious, glass half empty. This game, I thought, was a pretty good Rorschach test. I thought if you wanted to look at this game and feel encouraged about certain things in the beginning of the Mike Brown era, you could do that. If you wanted to watch this game and absolutely lose your mind over, oh my God, the Knicks had one of the most repeatable, reliable formulas in the entire National Basketball Association, and they lit it on fire, you could feel that way. As is often the case, I'm going to try to land somewhere in between while hitting on all of the salient points. But for me, the only place that I feel like I can start without being disingenuous to the basketball game that we watched tonight is the second quarter. Well, really the first half, but like the second quarter is where things got really out of hand, because we have been privileged. Listen, it hasn't all been peaches and cream here, but for the most part, we've been privileged as a fan base now for the last 5 years that whenever the basketball team that we root for takes the floor, you have some semblance of what you're going to get. They're not always going to play well. They're not even always going to play hard. And they're certainly not always going to, make shots. And there are times when they're out talented. So a lot of losses have piled up over the 5 years. But yeah, the distinct expectation that when the Knicks took the floor, they were going to be prepared to win the game. Did they always win the game? No, but they were going to be prepared to win the game. And so it was, for me at least, nothing short of an unnerving sensation watching that first half against the Chicago Bulls of all teams. We're going to get to of all teams, and we're going to get to the Bulls in a second. Look like the well-oiled machine, the team that knew exactly what they wanted to do on both ends of the floor, and have the Knicks look like a team that was like kind of sort of playing a game and maybe had some semblance of an idea of what they wanted to do on offense, and didn't really have that much of a semblance of an idea of what they wanted to do on defense. And they certainly weren't putting in the extra effort to make up for it. And it was, watching it, it was a shock. It was a shock. I can't describe it in any other way other than it was a shock in the moment. And yet, what did I say at the top? Anticipated. Because as I was watching it, and in my shock, I sat back and I said, okay, well, hold on. When we said all of those things in the preseason, and we said all of those things in training camp about this is going to be a process. It may not always look pretty. It may not be linear development. where one day is better than the last day, and the next day after that is better than the previous day, and so on and so forth. It kind of hit me watching this first half that this is what that actually looks like, where you're watching a game and you're watching a team go out there and go about their business, and you have to ask yourself, what are they doing? And I guess the part that really took me aback and like challenged my patience more than anything was the fact that they had 2 days off going into this game to theoretically go over what maybe didn't go so well in Milwaukee, what hasn't been going well, on offense, bad habits they're falling back into, maybe some new bad habits. And then to come out after 2 days off against a team that is playing great basketball and is playing with all kinds of confidence. And Josh Giddey, like you could write him down right now, first time All-Star. It's happening. Put it in pen. So you knew that was coming. And then to go out there and just really look like you had no semblance of a game plan at all, was like, okay, well, what, it's, training camp start. What is it? It's Halloween. It's October 31st. Training camp started 6 weeks ago. So again, the stuff we kept saying in the preseason, or at least that I kept saying, it's going to take time. It's going to be a process. Might not always look great. Might be bad before it gets good. You really have to buy into all that to watch that first half of basketball and not come out of it feeling, frankly, pretty apoplectic about where this thing was, in comparison to what we have gotten to watch over the last several years. So that was the first game. I said it's a tale of 3 games. Second game was the next 20 or so minutes, where the Knicks actually looked pretty good. On offense, at least, I would say they looked, I don't want to say they looked like exceptional. I don't want to say they all of a sudden look like the well-oiled machine that the Bulls look like in the first half. They did score 72 points in the second half of this game. It helped that they were hitting a lot of threes in the second half. They went on a stretch in the fourth quarter where they were seemingly nailing every three. And there were even stretches in the second half where they played what would, I guess, pass for defense. That's probably being unkind. Like, the effort was there. There was some execution there at times. It seemed like they knew where they were supposed to be. Did it matter? Not really, because they couldn't. It seemed if they got 2 consecutive stops in this game, it felt like a lot. But we'll get back to the defense in a bit. But on offense, at least, it looked like they kind of knew what they were doing. And again, does it help to hit shots? Yes, it helps to hit shots. But so I think you were encouraged, and yet by the same token, 2 days off, you go and look like that in the first half, but 15 minutes in the locker room at halftime, that's going to do the trick to make you suddenly look like a coherent, competent offense. Okay. So that part's maybe a little worrisome. And then we get to, so that was encouraging. I want to give them their credit. That was encouraging. And in that encouragement, I want to say, before I get to the last several minutes of the game, let me get this out of the way now. I thought the offensive process and really the execution from Karl-Anthony Towns was as good as it was from any Knick on offense, to be very clear. Before the last several minutes of the basketball game, I thought the process, execution, all of that stuff on the offensive end of the floor for Cat was everything that drove me mad about the Milwaukee game and everything that I wanted to see coming into this game. I thought I saw it. Again, was it perfect? No. Did the shots all go down? No. But I looked at a guy who was buying into what the Knicks wanted him to do. And I thought when the Knicks were at their best in the second half, again, for the first 20 minutes or so of the second half, Cat was in the middle of a lot of that. And that was really encouraging. And I got to tell you, best compliment that I could pay him was when he went off the court And it was the Brunson unit with, Brunson and Cat was not on the floor. When Cat came back in, I was like, oh my, thank God. They need him in there because without him, they were really struggling. And so that's the best compliment I could pay him. And it may be the last compliment that I pay him for a little bit. Because then we get to the third game within this game. It was the last 4 minutes in which the Bulls, so I guess, I don't know if we need to go to like one specific point, but I mean, we could go to this game after Mikal Bridges made a three. I mean, it got down to a 3-point game, but that was a little bit earlier. That was when OG made the first of the 2 threes. Then it got down to a 2-point game after OG made the second 3. And then when Bridges cut it from to 120 to 116. So that means in the less than 4.5 minutes of the game, and actually it's even worse than that because Pat Williams missed the 3 with 4:09 to go. So really we could go to the last 3 minutes and 11 seconds of the game. The Bulls scored 15 points. And they scored 15 points on what has affectionately, become known as the lineup, with Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5, and then OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges at the wings, and Deuce McBride and Jalen Brunson at the guards. And I referenced this in a newsletter today. I think I've referenced it on another pod. I'll reference it one more time. On the crossover episode that we did with Locked On Knicks, when I forget who brought up the lineup and how often it's going to close games, I kind of pushed back because I was like, well, are we sure that's who should be at center to close the game if you have Jalen Brunson in there and you have Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby and Deuce McBride? Because, look, I know what Karl-Anthony Towns brings as a stretch 5 on offense. But I also know NBA offenses aren't getting any less sophisticated. And I was in the shout out to everybody in the chat app. Shout out chatnicks.com. We're over 300 members now. I said it in there midway through the fourth quarter when we were talking about who's going to be the closing lineup for the game. And somebody suggested, Cat obviously should be in there. And I'm like, man, I literally wrote, they're going to go at him every time. And what did they do in the last 4 or 5 minutes of that basketball game? They went at Karl-Anthony Towns every time. And every time, they got some good at him. And that brings me back, not to the Locked On crossover where I said what I said about the closing lineup. That brings me back to the night they made the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. And what's the question we asked that night? How is this team going to hold up defensively? And what's the question we're asking now on October 31st, 2025? How's this team going to hold up defensively? So to go back to a positive for a second, and to be clear, I'm not suggesting that Mike Brown should have put Mitchell Robinson in the game for the last several minutes or Ariel Hukporti or anybody else. I don't blame Mike Brown for this loss. I don't blame Mike Brown for that lineup decision in the last 4 minutes of the game because Mitchell Robinson pretty clearly was not in game shape yet. So I guess whatever workload management plan they have him on, within the workload management plan does not entail actually being ready to manage the required workload upon returning to work. That must be a different workload management plan. Maybe they're working up to that workload management plan. It's all in the works and in the management. Anyway, I don't think Mitch should have been in the game at that point because, frankly, his defense wasn't much better tonight. But it did make me wonder, and I was watching the end of that game, and it did make me think, like, if this team has to actually win a game with defense at some point in the last several minutes, and like, who should actually be out there, and what does that say about like the foundation of the team, and how would Mike Brown do that? I don't know. Now you could have Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson out there at the same time. That makes things a little bit more tenable. But then you don't get Deuce out there. We all love Deuce McBride. I thought it was great to have him back. Shout out to him. I know it was a tough week or so for his family, and I just, thoughts and prayers to him and them. Thought he played really well tonight. So yeah, I mean, like, it just kind of goes back to, you could have all the newfangled fancy offenses you want. This team still has some very fundamental questions that neither Mike Brown nor Tom Thibodeau nor Billy Donovan or Jason Kidd or Ime Udoka or any of the other people that they tried to get this summer before they finally settled on Brown. None of those people have the magic answer, because it is a personnel-based question. And, tonight against the Bulls team that has not exactly been lighting up scoreboard so far this season, obviously they're a very capable offensive basketball team. You saw that tonight. It helped that they shot 50% from three or whatever it was. But like, these questions are not going to go away. They're not going to, those questions, the questions about the defense, those questions are not going away. They're going to continue to follow this team around. And it really does come down to where are Mike Brown's priorities? How is he going to try to win close games? And, I just thought that the end of this game was kind of, more than anything, a reminder of what this roster is and what this roster is not, at least when certain personnel is on the floor. But as far as the offense goes, look, the starters all ended up having nice statistical games. I watched the first half of this game, and nobody, not any starter, nobody knew what the fuck they were doing on offense. So I'm looking at all the stat lines. OG Anunoby, great shooting line, 10 of 13. Bridges, 9 of 14. Brunson, I actually didn't care for Brunson's game very much tonight. I thought there were quite a few instances where he forced it. And like 29 points on 25 shots. That's not a great Brunson game by any stretch. Cat, 22 points on 14 shots. Like, I know what all those guys did. I know the numbers they put up. I do not absolve them for what happened to this team in the second quarter. All that being said, and this is the last point that I'll make before we get to the super chats. I know people have been waiting patiently. And again, thank you for your patience. Those four key core starters, OG and Towns and Bridges and Brunson. And I'll absolve Mitch, because Mitch, again, first game back. And I'll even absolve Deuce, because, again, Deuce, first game back, and he's been going through a lot. He only shot 3 of 9, but like, they were good shots. I don't want to say that it was like universally agreed upon that the Knicks had solved their bench issues coming into this year. There were some people that were ringing kind of not loud alarm bells, but like, you could hear them. James Edwards III come to mind. We talked about it before the season. He's been writing about it pretty consistently over the last several months. Like, yeah, they signed some guys, but did they solve their bench issues? And so, just going through it from top to bottom, Yabusele gave him 3 minutes. Is he still hurt? Was Mike Brown like, yeah, I've seen enough? That wasn't great. Jordan Clarkson, I'm with Benji. I think Jordan Clarkson is going to help this team. Yeah, I'm helping him right now. And like, when he's out there and the offense like hits a snag, it's like, okay, it's Clark, and the ball ends up in Clarkson's hands. It's like, all right, ISO mode. Yeah, it didn't go great. And defensively, it's not much better. I'm going to save the next guy for last. Landry Shamet. I actually thought Shamet, look, it's always the case with Shamet. You watch him play and you're like, yeah, he looked okay and he did all the right things and the shots were good shots. Some guys, if they're not making shots, it's really tough for them to say that they played well. And Shamet's one of those guys, and he was 1 for 5. So it is what it is. Tyler Kolek, 4 minutes, and it was a long 4 minutes. The one turnover he had, I mean, I know he's had some rough ones here in the beginning of the season and had some rough ones in summer league and all that. Like that turnover that he had in the first half of this game was like, oh boy. So I was not surprised to see him not get off the bench in the second half. And then last but not least is Josh Hart, who I can sense it already with all due respect to Gershon, with all due respect to Kat, with all due respect to Clarkson, sorry if I'm forgetting anybody, I guess Kolek, I could tell where this is headed with Hart and this fan base. And there has been a lot of sentiment of just get the damn surgery, stop being thick-headed, rest your back, get your finger right. And I don't know if it was a scrum interview. I don't know if it was a one-on-one with Bondi, whatever it was. But Bondi put out an article before the game in which Josh Hart was quoted as saying, yeah, I'm not getting the surgery. It's not happening. Like, I'm going to figure it out. It's going to take some time, yada, yada, yada. I still believe in Josh Hart. I'm always going to believe in Josh Hart. I also know what Josh Hart is, and I know how much shit above the neck impacts Josh Hart. And I know he hears everything everybody's saying. So the fact that I think there is a chance that he could become the whipping boy for this team if they continue to struggle. And tonight he was a minus, I don't even know what he was a minus. It was minus a lot. He was a minus 18 in 15 minutes. In fairness, Deuce was a minus 22 in 29 minutes. But like the eye test, like Hart was bad. Hart was bad. Like that 18 minus 18, that ain't a misnomer. And he's finding his way. And I just wonder if he starts hearing all of this as he is trying to find his way. And he openly admitted, like, when's the last time you heard a guy outwardly say, my adjustment is the most difficult adjustment? And I didn't get the context for that quote. I looked for it. I couldn't find it. I have not been able to find the video of it or or even hear the audio. But for a guy to be like, my adjustment is the most difficult adjustment. Shit, man. That's saying the quiet part out loud. So I don't know what's going on with Hart. I mean, I do know what's going on with Hart, but like, I don't know what's going to happen. I just know this basketball team is not built in such a way that Josh Hart can become an ineffective 15-minute-a-game player and they'll be fine, because they won't be fine. They need him. He is one of their, when healthy, he is unquestionably one of their top 6 players. You know, well, when healthy, he is unquestionably one of their top 7 players. But hey, if you're going to win a championship, you need a really rock solid top 7, you know, and past that 7, it gets dicey. So they need him to get right. You know, I hope there is some modicum of patience with him, although I have a feeling there probably will not be tonight. I mean, look, I don't want to belabor it anymore. Like, we know what this game was. We know what it wasn't. It was a frustrating game to watch for as much as they made a night. Here's the last thing I'll say, and then we'll get to the Super Chats. They got it to within 2. Normally, when a team is down by 22 points and they get within 2, like, that is going to elicit a lot of good feelings, and you're going to feel great about that comeback. I was watching the comeback, and even as I was watching the comeback, and I promise you, it's not like I've lost, you know, my fandom. I was happy. It was great to see them coming back. I did not feel that sensation that you usually get when your team is down big and they come back. And it wasn't because I didn't think they could win. It was because I did not believe that they could get stops. And that was discouraging. I'll just be honest. That was discouraging for me. So I hope they figure that part out. I hope they figure out the offensive consistency part out. I hope they don't dig themselves too big of a hole. Not that I don't think they could dig out of it, but like, it's going to get real gnarly around here if this team can't figure out a way to win a game soon. I know they got us like 3 weeks straight at home, and they'll probably, and they got some patsies in there, but man, you go out there and you play like you did in that second quarter. I don't give a damn who you're playing. You're not going to win a lot of basketball games. So, you know, we'll see. It's all a work in progress. Let's hope it's in furtherance of something worthwhile. Still seeing signs of it. The signs are good if you're looking for them, but the bad stuff it's not great. And then when you factor in the bad, that's like the adjustment period bad, with the bad that was like the pre-existing bad and probably is not going anywhere bad. You know, it's easy to look at this and be like, well, this isn't as encouraging as I thought I was going to feel. Must be 21 or over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatics Sportsbook app.